Welcome to Reddit Aliens. Which celebrity suffered the worst death not safe for work? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Roger Williamson, British racing driver from the 70s. He was competing in the Dutch Grand Prix when he hit a curb and his car flipped over and caught fire. He was unharmed by the flip but couldn't get himself out because of the smoke and, well, being upside down. Race marshals were present at the scene, but they couldn't do anything since they didn't have fireproof overalls. Bear in mind, the race wasn't stopped while he was burning. Fellow driver David Purley stopped his car, sprinted to Williamson's car, took an extinguisher from a marshal and tried to put out the fire while being able to hear screams from the flames. Unfortunately, the fire was too strong for Purley alone to put out. He even tried to flip the car over, but it was too heavy. Drivers did have fireproof overalls. Williamson died from smoke inhalation. He was 26. Purley was shocked that they were the only one who was willing to pull over and help, and he received a medal for his efforts. He won't be the biggest celebrity on this list, but the wrestler Owen Hart plunged to his death from 70 feet in the air in front of 20,000 people during a live pay-per-view. He was supposed to descend from the rafters in a superhero-like entrance, but it went terribly wrong. WWE insisted on doing the stunt without the proper safety equipment since they wanted Owen to do a quick release, and they hired a below-par rigging company that would agree to do it since most wouldn't. They were grossly negligent. Isadora Duncan, a famous dancer in the 1920s, wore a long scarf. She jumped in a sports car with no roof and the scarf got caught in the spokes of one of the wheels and she was strangled. It's Kirsty MacColl to me. Sliced up by the propeller of an illegally operated boat while saving her children from the same for the boat's rich owner to buy his way out of justice. Sharon Tate was pretty bad. Getting stabbed to death while pregnant and begging for your unborn child's life is pretty effing brutal. Lou Gehrig. ALS causes loss of muscle control, but many people diagnosed know what's in store for them. They know they will be losing the ability to walk, talk, and even breathe. Judith Barcy voiced characters in The Land Before Time and All Dogs Go to Heaven. She died at the hands of her father in a murder-suicide after years of abuse. Phil Hartman, murdered in his bed by his wife. At the time, it was a celebrity death that really bothered me. Otis Redding. I was reading up on the plane crash. A band member somehow managed to free himself before the plane hit the icy lake and float to safety. Everyone else were still strapped in their seats. He said he won't ever forget Otis and the band screaming for help as they drowned and froze to death. Cliff Burton. Metallica was on their tour in 1986 when they got into a bus accident on their tour bus. They were traveling in Sweden when the driver lost control of the bus after hitting a patch of black ice. Burton, who was sleeping on the top bunk closet to the window when the bus turned over, was thrown out of the window, so the bus fell on top of him. Attempts were made to rescue him by lifting the bus with a crane, but the crane dropped the bus and it fell back on top of him. No one is for sure whether he died from the first impact or the second. Truly tragic story. Guy was kick-ass on bass. Also, I put black ice in quotations because James Hetfield walked around in his socks searching for the patch but never found it, so it is suspected that the bus driver was intoxicated. Selena. Being murdered by someone you thought you could trust and being snuffed out when she was on the cusp of superstardom, all her hard work since a little girl down the drain. I would say Randy Rhoads. While he was on the Diary of a Madman tour with Ozzy in 1982, he was tired of touring and tired of Ozzy. Their last conversation was an argument over Ozzy's heavy drinking. The last thing he said to Ozzy was, "You'll kill yourself, one of these days." After driving a while in the night, they stopped over at a flying estate in Leesburg, Florida, to fix a malfunctioning air conditioning unit on their bus while Osbourne was asleep. Someone saw some planes and said that they should take it for a joyride. Someone suggested that Randy should fly with them, even though he was terrified of flying. But he went on the plane and the pilot wanted to buzz the tour bus, but on the third attempt, the plane clipped the top of the tour bus, breaking the wing and sending the plane out of control. Randy's head went through the windshield and crashed into the nearby garage. Just seconds later, the plane burst into flames. According to Sharon Osbourne, Ozzy's wife, who was asleep in the bus and awoken by the crash, they were all in bits. It was just body parts everywhere. It's just a horrific death to anyone. Randy is and always will be my biggest inspiration as a guitarist. Bobby Driscoll. If you don't know who he is as a child, he worked for Disney as the voice of Peter Pan and played Jim Hawkins in Disney's version of Treasure Island. His career did not carry on into adulthood, and after he went missing for a year, it was discovered he died homeless from a drug overdose and was buried in a pauper's grave. Adrienne Shelley, murdered in her own apartment by a contractor who had been working in the building. She caught him robbing her office, which led to him suffocating her and staging her body to look like she'd hanged herself. She was apparently an incredible woman and mom at the happiest point in her life, with a career just about to take off. This was right before the release of her amazing indie film Waitress, which she wrote, directed, and starred in. Watch Waitress. It's a delight and a masterpiece. If it weren't for her murder, I think she'd be one of the most influential screenwriters and directors today. I also heard her husband created a documentary about her that was released recently. Tycho Brahe. Brahe thought it would be rude to get up and use the facilities while at a banquet. According to observers, this set off a bladder ailment that killed him shortly thereafter in 1601. A 2010 autopsy by Danish scientists revealed that, despite rumors that he had been poisoned, Brahe did most likely die from a burst bladder. Dimebag Darrell Abbott, playing on stage when a crazed fan jumped the railing and shot him in the head. He then shot a few other people while Dime's brother watched on, as he was the drummer for the band. Horrible way to go, and something like that should never have happened. Pantera. Houdini. He did the trick countless times before and could take a punch from anyone. The night he died, someone came up to him and punched him in the gut without giving him time to stretch and prepare. It ruptured his appendix, and he continued to do the show, and dies from lack of medical treatment. Anton Yelchin. I can't imagine anything worse than slowly dying in a torturous manner with not a soul nearby and zero way to get help or save yourself. I'm not afraid of much, nor heights or claustrophobic or drowning, but dying in a helpless manner slowly is one thing that terrifies me truly. That Glee actress that disappeared when she was on a boat with her little son. Sharon Tate always haunts me. She was about 8 or 9 months pregnant when the Manson family broke in, and she pleaded with them to let her live until she gave birth and offered herself as hostage in exchange for the life of her child. They ended up stabbing her 16 times in the stomach, 5 of which were fatal. They also killed her former lover, her husband's friend, and his girlfriend, and an innocent man who was visiting the property's caretaker. John Eric Hexum. He was an actor who was playing around with a gun loaded with blanks during a delay in filming. As a joke, he put the gun to his head and pulled the trigger. Hexum became restless and impatient during the delay and began playing around to lighten the mood. He had unloaded all but one blank round, spun it, and, simulating Russian roulette, he put the revolver to his right temple and pulled the trigger. Unaware of the danger, the explosive effect of the muzzle blast caused enough blunt force trauma to fracture a quarter-sized piece of his skull and propel this into his brain, causing massive hemorrhaging. Hexum was rushed to Beverly Hills Medical Center, where he underwent 5 hours of surgery to repair his wounds. On October 18th, aged 26, 6 days after the accident, Hexum was declared brain dead. I was born in the 90s, and I don't know her, but Jane Mansfield. The car crashed at high speed into the rear of a tractor-trailer that had slowed behind a truck, spraying mosquito fogger. The semi-trailer was shrouded by insecticide fog. The 3 adults in the front seat died instantly. The children asleep in the rear seat survived with minor injuries. She suffered severe head injury to the point where her scalp was shredded off and parts of her brain. 2 weeks before her death, she got beaten up by her then boyfriend, who died with her in the same crash. Not exactly a typical celebrity, although scientists should be more famous in general, nor very recent, but my vote is for Kurt Gödel, a mathematician and one of the most important contributors to the field of mathematical logic. Well known for his incompleteness theorems. Later in life, Gödel started to suffer more and more from mental illness, and it got to the point where he had an obsessive fear of being poisoned. Therefore, he would only eat food that his wife had prepared for him. Then, at one point, his wife had to be admitted to the hospital for a prolonged period, and Gödel refused to eat, slowly starving himself to death over the period of several months.